And what is going on, ladies and gentlemen? It is Andrew Haubner here with No Cap Space WBB. Happy to be with you. Happy you are here with us. It's beautiful Tuesday morning. You might have just seen my dog in the background there. That is Daisy. And today is Daisy's 8th birthday. So if you happen to see Daisy out in Denver somewhere, buy her owners a beer in honor of Daisy's birthday. No, happy birthday, Daisy. We love you very much. Anywho, happy that you're with us here on a fine Tuesday. We got a lot of women's basketball to discuss. As always, got to shout out our partners at Homefield. Use code NOCAP15 to get 15% off your first Homefield order. Can't miss. Kickoff continues. They have over 300 new items getting you ready for the college football season. And then once we round the turn into women's basketball season, check out the No Cap Space WBB collection, a curated collection of all of Homefield's women's basketball merch. As always, you can find us on Substack at nocapspacewbb.com. That's a daily newsletter that you can sign up for, and also a site for us to put all of our multimedia content, written, pod, and video, as well as a bunch of insider stuff for the paid subscribers. Become a ball knower today. Make sure to like, share, and subscribe on YouTube. We are on the hunt for 5,000 subscribers, and we have been killing it with viewers like you spreading the good word and helping us get to that 5,000 subscriber goal. Also, be sure to rate us and review us and give us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts, if you will. We do love a good old bump in the algorithm, and we can't do that without you guys. And hopefully, we respond in kind by giving you the kind of content that you are looking for here on YouTube for women's basketball creators. All right, 2 minutes and 15 seconds in. Let's talk about the CBA negotiations for the WNBA and their players union. So for those of you that missed the story just this week, Front Office Sports' Annie Costabile reporting that a new WNBA collective bargaining agreement by the October 31st deadline appears to be increasingly unlikely. So for those of you that have been keeping up with this, you would know what this deadline is. For those of you that are just coming back in and trying to figure out where we stand on this, there was one deadline, October 31st, for the WNBA and the players to come together to sign a new collective bargaining agreement. There is an expectation now, at least it feels this way. This is an I feel instead of an I think or an I know. I feel that with the passage of this deadline and with how acrimonious the exit was between the players and the league during All-Star break, when that big CBA meeting was supposed to happen, I think we might be headed for some type of work stoppage. So this is a WNBPA statement. This is the Players Association. Terry Carmichael Jackson, the executive director, saying in a statement, quote, "The players are working diligently to achieve a transformational CBA that builds on the growth, momentum, and positive news surrounding women's sports and the W. As we approach the 60-day mark, the league's lack of urgency leaves players wondering if it is focused on making this work or just running out the clock. Fans do not want that. They are with the players in demanding a new standard for the W." The league had a statement of their own and said, "We have been clear with the WNBPA, but there is no doubt our number one priority is to get a new collective bargaining agreement completed that addresses the players' priorities while also supporting the long-term growth and success of the league and the teams. We've been meeting with the union throughout the summer and will continue to meet until this gets done, with additional sessions already scheduled through the rest of the season." Now, I would recommend reading Annie's story in full over at Front Office Sports. Give her a follow, too. She's one of the best newsbreakers on our side of the aisle here in the women's basketball world. But there are extensions that can be agreed upon when it comes to this CBA negotiation. So they could do like a 60-day extension and just sort of kick the can a little bit down the road. There could be a work stoppage. And I think that we're starting to get into a point here where we got to ask about what the league's priorities are, right? And at this point, as I referenced in the video that went out yesterday with regard to the NBA's conflict of interest with the WNBA in terms of its ownership groups, I'm not all that certain that the NBA's board of governors, the league as an entity, which owns 42%, and the board of governors that are dual joint owners of an NBA team and a WNBA team, majority on both ends, which is an important distinction to make for what I'm going to talk about a little later. I have a hard time believing that this is solely about the WNBA as a league entity making sure that it's protected for itself and its owners and what the growth of the league actually is. I think we're kind of in a place here where there's placation occurring with the NBA and, what concessions can we glean, but also what do we have to dig our heels in on, even if, say, 13 independent ownership groups that were free of the NBA, they might not care about this one particular thing, but because the NBA is present in this negotiation, they care about it. And now all of a sudden, this is an important sticking point. I want to make the clarification and the point that I don't know what that would be. That's not the insider information of what they are discussing. But to me, I feel like we're in a space here where I have a hard time feeling that this would not be as contentious if there wasn't this NBA element involved in it. And the reason I say that is because of ways in which non-WNBA affiliated NBA owners have talked about the league. I have said before, I have always kind of been on the train that the source for this story that I'm about to share with you guys on the split screen, I've always had the contention, that the source here was James Dolan for this New York Post article from October of 2024. WNBA will lose $40 million this season and its NBA investors are growing impatient. There's some weird stuff in here that I feel like points to Dolan as the source of the story, but also it wouldn't surprise me if he was also telling the truth in some of this, right? An NBA team executive is sourced here telling the Post, the WNBA owes the NBA so much we won't see any windfall for years. The NBA team executive goes on to say, we are not even getting any money from WNBA expansion fees. Some NBA owners want more transparency, and NBA Commissioner Adam Silver about when they'll get to see some return from the suddenly popular WNBA. This is why I think that Dolan's kind of a source here. New York Knicks owner James Dolan has been pushing Silver behind the scenes. There's a bunch of owners who see Dolan as their hero for pressing Silver on these questions, but Silver's not giving us any answers. Now, under normal circumstances, and this is like a little journalism inside baseball from a guy who's been in it for about a decade, a publication like the Post is, a tabloid in nature. And I don't really say that derisively. Like, it is a tabloid. It started as a tabloid. It stood in stark contrast to something like the New York Times or the Herald or the Wall Street Journal, which were kind of like the paper of records in New York for the last 100 or so years. The Post and the Daily News, for those that are unaware of how this works in New York, the Post and the Daily News are kind of dueling tabloids. Like, it's like People Magazine and Us Weekly, but covering New York, right? And the Daily News has a very liberal bent. The Post is a Murdoch company and has a very conservative bent. And a lot of sourcing that they have allowed historically has allowed people to talk about themselves in the third person on background as if it's someone else talking about them. And, we've heard of this popping up in political media. We have seen situations in sports where someone sends something to Adam Schefter sends something to a team executive so they can read it before it goes out to tailor the message appropriately. So the reason that I have always believed that Dolan was the source for this Post story is that, it's very randomly effusive with its praise of him. And then Dolan declines comment, so I feel like, and it's again, coming from the Post, like why would Jerry Reinsdorf in Chicago, for instance, have this opinion? Why would Joe Tsai have this opinion, especially when he is the one who bought the Liberty from James Dolan? The person that would have that opinion would be James Dolan, who sold the New York Liberty and right before the major windfall happened from the league, and probably feels jilted and wants back in on some, in some way, shape, or form. The reason that I bring this up and the reason that my belief about James Dolan being the source in that story is important for the argument I am making here is that if there are other NBA owners that do feel the way Dolan feels, so if James Dolan is not on an island with this opinion of, I'm an NBA owner, I don't own a WNBA franchise, at least not anymore, I didn't think it was a good investment, I want to get my money back for it, I don't care how, I want to get my money back. I mean, there are a lot of teams and ownership groups that formerly were a part of the WNBA that are still in the NBA's board of governors. There are probably a lot of NBA owners that are just generally ambivalent about the WNBA. There's probably some that don't necessarily respect it in the way that, you want it to. I mean, look at a place like Dallas, right? That Bill Cameron moved that franchise from Tulsa to Dallas, but it's not as though the Mavericks ever got involved in that team. The DeVos family cashed out for the Orlando Miracle, which is how the Mohegan tribe ended up having the Connecticut Sun. James Dolan sold the Liberty to Joe Tsai, and the Liberty were playing in Westchester, Community Center, which was literally where my high school was playing section championships for basketball. And Tsai buys it and takes him to Barclays. And so the issue with where the league is at right now, and the reason that it's so hard to not assume that there is nefarious intent or even kind of make the implication that there is some type of collusion afoot with the NBA, is they keep giving us all of these little things, down to the Connecticut Sun situation, that make me feel that this discussion around the CBA, with values rising the way they have and the way they are, makes me feel like there's a little bit more focus from the NBA on the WNBA. Like, the NBA is a shadow hand here that is potentially creating a problem in the discussions between the Players Association and the WNBA as a league. Because the people that have been pushing for expansions within the W, right? Charter flights, doing all of these things. It's an ownership group of people that are new money NBA owners. It's Joe Tsai, who is a relatively new NBA owner. It's Joe Lacob, who is a relatively new NBA owner. It's Matt Ishbia, who is a brand new NBA owner. Like, the guys that are dumping money into the W that have that NBA kind of counterbalance are NBA owners that care about what this is. But there's a bunch of other owners out there that don't. Because some of them may be in line. Tillman Fertitta may be in line. Dan Gilbert and the Gores family in Detroit, Gilbert's with Cleveland, they may be in line. But we're still talking about 15 to 17 other NBA owners that still have a vote and a say in how the 42% manages the W. And so we're in this place where the players are fighting two different entities and two different sets of wants, not to mention the 16% of the WNBA that also is, private equity and corporate owned. And they have a completely different idea on how these books work and how to balance books. And, there's probably a pretty rife infection of private equity mindset when it comes to who the PA is negotiating with and who Kathy Engelbert, the commissioner of the WNBA, has to bring to the table with her, right? Like, I have my foibles with Kathy, or I have my issues with Kathy, and Kathy has her foibles, but I do think she's in an impossible position here, because you have to answer to WNBA owners that are independents, right? So a Larry Gottesteiner, a Mohegan Tribe, a Michael Alter, a Bill Cameron, even though he's kind of halfway in, and the NBA owners who are, guys that generally are in the new guys club, and then the NBA guys that might not like the WNBA, and then the PE people. So there's like 4 different factions here of varying degrees of control and discussion that are all kind of trying to put their 2 cents in about what they feel the players deserve and should have and what is feasible economically. And then the expansion piece of all of this, where it's like, how do we manage and adjust this when the NBA ownership groups like the Gilberts and the Gores and Tillman Fertitta potentially come into the league? How is that going to be handled? So that, to me, is the stickiness. I think the players have been very clear from jump about what they want. It doesn't sound to me like there is any issue in regards to how they are approaching the negotiation. I don't think the players are giving any mixed signals about what it is that they want. And to be honest, I also think that they're pretty consistent in their messaging, because if there was something that they wanted that was thrown into the All-Star break, for instance, that would have leaked. That would have come from a reporter that is friendly to the league's offices and thus is a person that gets more of those scoops. And there is a clear bent in the story about, sources inside the room say at the 11th hour, the PA asked for this, and this isn't, part of what was previously discussed. That hasn't happened. There's been no knives for the PA in these negotiations. The knives have all come from the players' end. And they have said, we have been getting the can kicked down the road on us, and we feel like they want to run the clock out on us, and they're disrespecting our time and what we feel we need to have. And the fact that the statements from the WNBA continue to be, we're going to make a transformative CPA and we want to work with them. This is not a normal labor negotiation. Like, this is being handled in a strangely passive-aggressive way that, to me, signals the WNBA has too many cooks in its kitchen, potentially, about who wants what and how they want it. And until they get the messaging straight on what that is, they're going to continue to push this down the road. And I don't know if they believe that there is going to be a work stoppage, or that the WNBA, could survive and have the leverage in a work stoppage. I think that would be a gigantic mistake. And I'll lay it out with the last 3-4 minutes, because I don't want to go over, 2021 with this. But here's the thing. You have Unrivaled, right? 3x3 league, pays a ton of money. Everybody is under the belief that Unrivaled would just go 5x5, and, you could have a league like that be the basic stopover until a work stoppage, between the WNBA and the WNBPA stops. I don't actually think it's Unrivaled. I think Unrivaled would be kind of a Drew League fun type thing, where the same 30 people are still getting paid and still playing in that period of time. But I think that the more realistic scenario is to watch for the 2 5X leagues that are coming online and the third 5X league that exists in the Bay. Because the discussion right now is that there might be 30 to 35 people for Unrivaled, but there isn't a space for the other 120. For one league, maybe not. Maybe one league can't absorb 120 players overnight, but 3 leagues can absorb 40. And all you need is a handful of owners that are independent in the WNBA to say, if you're going to mess with them, I'll go work on my own league independent of you. And now we have a real discussion about where other money can come. Because the thing with the moneyed owners, the independent ownership groups in the WNBA, they're not poor. Larry Gottesteiner has money. That group has money. LA's group is the Dodgers ownership group. They got money. This Force 10 has money. You've seen Climate Pledge and you've seen their team facility. They got money. Michael Alter and them, Bill Cameron, maybe not the type of money worth really thinking about here, but they can support a payroll at least, especially with what's to come. And if you really consider the big brain conspiracy hob take that I'm really about to have, you theoretically could stand to make more in a new league because you're not getting such a substantial cut taken out of your ownership revenue pie by a league entity that doesn't even have anything to do with you. They're basically a creditor. And that's the NBA with 42% ownership of the W. Because don't forget, when TV rights and revenues occur, you got to split everything off and apportion it accordingly. And as a WNBA owner that is not affiliated with the NBA, you can't double dip, right? So Joe Lacob, for instance, can double dip when TV money comes in and 42% goes to the league, 16% goes to outside investors, and then the remaining percentage goes to the WNBA owners. Well, Joe Lacob's getting paid as an NBA owner and Joe Lacob's getting paid as a WNBA owner. So he's getting 2 different revenue streams here. Whereas Michael Alter is getting 1. That's already a significant dilution because of the 42% that the NBA owns. So if you are a WNBA owner currently and you are independent and you don't like the way this is going and it gets to a work stoppage and these other leagues step up and say, hey, if you come over here, you can have the type of ownership equity stake that you always wanted. I mean, it starts to become really difficult to not go from point A to point B to C to D to E all the way to Z in your head. It's hard to not look at how that could play out logically and how, at the end of the day, that could make sense. Because what we've seen and what has been shown is that the investment is there across the board. What I have been told by people that run these smaller leagues, Upshot, the WPBA, Exalt, all these leagues coming online. What I've been told by people in charge of those leagues, like at the top levels, is that investment right now is all geared toward the W, because there are a lot of high dollar donors that want to buy in on something big, and there's not a lot of mid-sized donors that want to go small. They'd rather get a smaller chunk of equity at the WNBA table than be a bigger owner in one of these leagues. Well, what happens if the WNBA is no longer an option? You already have the infrastructure of these leagues built, and you can just say, yeah, I'll pay in now. Like, when it's worth absolutely nothing and I get full ownership, like, I'll go in and do this completely. Work out a CBA with the players that you want to. See which one of the three everybody gravitates towards. And I mean, you could do that, And if you look through the ownership snapshot of the league itself, and this is the last thing I will show, is that it is not necessarily all that out there to think about it in these terms. This is from 2022. So the only change I think here would be Sarver and Ishbia in Phoenix. But this group here, Larry Gottesteiner, Suzanne Hebert, and Renee Montgomery, they are independent of the NBA. Michael Alter, independent of the NBA. Mohegan Tribe, independent of the NBA. Bill Cameron is a minority owner in Oklahoma City, so he's on the half. Herb Simon is a combo owner. Mark Davis is independent. The LA group, as I mentioned, is the Dodgers group. It's now Mark Lohr in Minnesota, so that's an NBA group. Joe Tsai, NBA group. Robert Sarver, as I mentioned, this is Ishbia now, NBA group. Don Trudeau, Jenny Gilder, Lisa Brumel, that's Force 10. They own Seattle. That's independent. And then the Mystics are Ted Leonsis and Sheila Johnson. So if I have my numbers right there, that's exactly half the league that's independently owned. It's going to be a little under half now that the NBA ownership groups are coming in for Cleveland, for Detroit, for Portland, and Golden State, as we mentioned with Joe Lacob. But 6 is enough. And then you factor in the people that put in bids that didn't get it, right? Jimmy Haslam, whatever your opinions are on the Cleveland Browns, like, dude's still a billionaire. He's still got money to put into a sports league that's on the come up. The Austin group, I was told, didn't have a billionaire singularly, but was a lot like the Dodgers consortium, where it was a lot of guys that were worth 8 and 9 figures that made a significantly high cap table. Denver still has people that are unaffiliated owners that are interested in ownership for a potential WNBA team, although the bid's quiet right now. St. Louis had a bid that Jason Tatum was connected to. Kansas City had a bid Patrick Mahomes was connected to. So there's a lot of places here that don't necessarily need NBA ties that could do this. So the longer this goes, the more I am curious who grows a spine here. Because it feels like a lot of what's going on in the current cultural moment is people just sort of laying down because they understand that, like, capital reigns supreme. Some of that's ingrained in our own American culture, but I digress. I'll keep this, basketball and sports business related for now. I bring that up to say players could theoretically sit on a place of, look, capital's winning everywhere else. Like, capital's probably going to win here too. And the NBA owners could be lulled into a false sense of security that believing that to be the case because they're winning everywhere else currently, given, their money. But if people wanted to stand up and push against the way the NBA and WNBA is handling the Players Association, is handling the Mohegan Tribe, is handling the people that really are affiliated with the sport away from men's sports, this becomes a different conversation very, very quickly. So we might get an extension after the October 31st deadline. But if we don't, a work stoppage is on the table. And after that, truly anything goes. That's all the time we got for today. I know I said, only 2 minutes left. I went on for another 5. So thanks for being on for that. If you like the ISOs, let me know. I mean, like I said, I know my ball decently well, but I know sports business the best. That's kind of my contribution and role here at No Cap Space. So if this is, content that you guys like seeing, please let me know. Be sure to like, share, subscribe, comment, do your thing. Follow us on all the channels, and we will see you very soon. Ball Up Top is going to be hitting your feeds on Wednesday morning, and that's all the time we got here on NCS this